welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Shaikh. You guys, it's Tuesday already. My God. I am so excited about my guest today. I just can't even tell you how excited I am. I am happy that she reached out to me. You got to check out what this incredible person does, okay? She has spent 20 plus years studying how people make decisions in a variety of contexts. She has spent 10 plus years working with businesses of all sizes across all industry categories, helping them drive strategic growth. She also has contributed to the Huffington Post, Seattle Business Magazine, and she has been interviewed by Forbes and MarketWatch. And she has a best-selling book called Money Off the Table, Decision Science, and the Secret to Smarter Investing, which is now available on Amazon. Here's my amazing guest, Nika Kabiri. How are you?
I'm great. I don't feel as amazing as you make me out to be. I just have to say that.
Listen, sometimes that's why you have to surround yourself with good people who will pump you up at times when you don't feel so pumped up.
Truth.
Nika, I am absolutely fascinated by what you do, mainly because I know some people laugh at Tony Robbins and these guys, but I think to me, Tony Robbins is a brilliant psychologist. Now, people can come and argue that and say that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. But Tim Robbins has helped me a lot with discovering why I do what I do. So please tell us, what is it? What is the decision of science? Please do tell.
Yeah, so it's basically split up into two kind of areas. And one is focused on prescriptive stuff, like what should you be doing? How should you be making decisions? So there's a lot of analytics around that and, fancy words like optimization and modeling and stuff like that. And the other part of it, which I think is the much more fun part, is the descriptive stuff, which is how do we make decisions? Not how should we, but basically how are we fucking up all the time? Is basically how I think about it.
Yeah, that's my entire existence. So yeah.
Everyone. I'm the worst. I'm sure I'm the worst. Oh my God. So it's basically those two things. So, and I work with my business consultants, for instance. They want me to help them make the right choices that are free of bias, free of social influence, that are really objective and rational. But also when I do that, I kind of function as a referee, blow the whistle and say, oh my gosh, that's confirmation bias. You don't want to fall for that. Or, oh, you're going for the bandwagon effect. Hold up a second. There's something going on here. So that's pretty much what I do. And I kind of write about that. And I have a blog that I just launched called yournextdecision.com, where I'm just now starting to explore a lot of these things in the context of relationships, love, social justice, mental wellness.
Yeah. So Nika, what got you interested in this kind of work?
Well, I think probably every single one of us grew up often thinking, why are people doing dumb shit all the time? Just why, what is up with people? That's just kind of what we all do. Yes. And then when I was in graduate school, I happened to be lucky enough to work under the mentorship of some of the biggest minds in rational choice theory of sociology, guys like Michael Hector and Carl Dieter Opp, and just really learning from them rational choice models, economic models of decision making, and how that explains social movements, protests, marriage, all of this other stuff. So that was just really an eye-opener to me, to really study the question of why do people do dumb stuff in the context of a discipline like decision science. And so it was really in grad school that I got into that, and just really, when I went out into the world and got work in doing consulting and consumer insights and research, it was just all about what are consumers thinking? Why are they choosing to purchase somebody else versus our company's product or service? And it just went from there.
Got it. Yeah. This science, the decision science that I should describe it, is this a term that you coined, or is this a term that's out there?
It's a term that I've kind of stolen or kind of maybe borrowed. I'll say I borrowed it. I couldn't for the longest time figure out what to call what I did or what I wanted to do. And there are people out there who do decision science, and they're data analysts. So there's a lot of AI, machine learning stuff that's involved in what they do. But I think what I do mostly is decision analysis. But to call myself a decision analyst just isn't really complete. So it is kind of a burgeoning field. It's kind of a new way of thinking about things. It's also cross-disciplinary, like
Sure.
psychology, medicine, sociology, political science.
That's
That's
right.
kind of the thing. Yeah.
That's right. So, all right, let's start with the thing, with the last torturous 4 years that we have been through.
Mhm.
So that kind of like cumulative decision of majority of, or rather the electoral vote people who voted for Trump to come into office. I want to know, like, that decision making, right? So many people were perplexed for the longest time. They were like, why would anyone vote for Trump? Like, don't you see how he talks? Don't you see what he's about? He's a failed business guy. Why would you vote for this guy? How does this decision science come into play for something like that?
Yeah. So obviously I can't get in their heads. I don't really know, but I can guess.
Sure.
We can
Okay.
make guesses, like what's the likelihood that certain things are going on. So there's a very strong likelihood that there's some bandwagon sort of thing going on, like, or groupthink going on. We are very heavily influenced by the people we're connected to. Like, if
Sure.
you think that what you put on in the morning when you get up and, get out into the world has nothing to do with what other people think, like, I mean, come on, like every little decision we make has to do with what other people are thinking. And it's very safe to say that people who are in the electoral college who are making decisions like that, they're not operating in a vacuum. They're influenced by whoever is in their networks, in their social groups.
Sure.
That has probably a lot to do with it. And then, of course, there's also this rational decision making going on where you're weighing incentives against disincentives. You've got trade-offs that have different weights to them. I mean, they're kind of looking out for themselves too, what their interests might be. So there's kind of a combination of things that are probably going on. But I kind of can't help but thinking there's some sort of influence, like this network influence that might be me driving it. And then there's a lot of bias in every
Right.
decision we make. Like, just, yeah.
You made a point about how we dress is because we think about how other people would see us, or is there an echo?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't hear one.
Okay, good. No, I just wanted to make sure that there's no echo. I don't know. I thought I heard something. But I guess my question is, when I get dressed in the morning, I don't think I'm thinking about what other people would think of me. It depends on where I'm going. If I'm just out there running errands, I don't care. Like, whatever. I must confess, though, if my face looks a little busted up, I am going to put makeup on, even though I have a mask on, right? I'm still going to do my eyes. So even if I make eye contact with someone, they're not going to be terrified when they look into my eyes. Like, holy shit, there's a raccoon woman walking around.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit.
Okay. Yes, please.
Because, I mean, if I gave you an acid washed mini dress and, I mean, there are limits, right, to what you might decide to wear, even if you're going to the grocery store, just running errands. Right. And I'm all about sweats. Especially COVID has totally changed.
That's correct. That's correct.
But I won't wear a tank top.
Right.
There are still limits. We're still constrained in the decisions.
And so that would be more, is that more familial influence? Is that cultural influence? What is that?
It's what I think it's whatever you feel influenced by. You just froze for a minute. I just want to make sure that our connection was fine. Yeah, I mean, if you're in college, high school, you have a group of friends. I mean, it's definitely, that's your peer group and that's what you're going to be influenced by. If you're younger, it's probably your kids. If you're older, it might be your spouse, it might be your friends. It might be less important as you get older. But the point is, we don't do or think we can do anything. There's always this constraint on our decision making. And it's true in the electoral college as well. There are pressures. I'm sure.
I mean, how does one quantify influence?
Oh, wow. That is a freaking great question. It depends on the situation. It depends on the context. So if you want to explain, for instance, why the electoral college in 2016 voted the way they did, you need to kind of go in there and do the research on that. So I can just kind of guess at stuff and give you likelihoods of things, but guesses, hypotheses. But if you really want to know, you have to go in there and really explore the dynamics of what's going on with those people in that time, in that history, in that point in history. So I would look at incentives and disincentives. I would look at, constraints. I would look at the biases that are natural to all of us and what's triggering them or what might not be, cultural norms that are being reinforced or maybe dispensed with. So those are just really all I'm just playing with is variables, possibilities, potentials. And when you go in, you can measure it by just basically operationalize, is a fancy word. You just operationalize these concepts. Like you might say something like, okay, how would you measure like social influence? Well, you could ask people questions like, how often do you talk to people in your network about how you're going to vote? How often do you share information about how public is it? How private is it? And all of these little bits of data can be used together to kind of paint a picture of, okay, I think there's a lot of social influence, or maybe there isn't. And you can quantify it that way because you can create these scales. And yes, I was very influenced. I was not very influenced, and things like that. Is this kind of making sense?
It makes a little sense. I think what I'm trying. I guess I'll break that question down even further. I guess, when we talk about influence, we're talking about, I guess, intellectual influence. We're talking about internal influence. We're talking about the values and the influences we grew up with, the current situation and the current environment you live in. So I guess, how does one really quantify, of how percentage of each plays a role in your decision making?
Same way. I mean, if you want to understand what influences you, and this is what I might do with my clients, right? If I want to understand what influences are at play in your life, I would need to explore, like, okay, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Like, who's the first person you talk to? Where do you get most of your news information? What social media platforms are you really engaging with? I think social media is a big one these days.
That's right.
There's a lot of controversy around that. Okay. And who matters to you too. And you measure it a lot of times, and people who study deviance do this, like who study criminal behavior. What's the intensity in which you interact with someone? What's the frequency in which you interact with someone? Because if you're just talking to someone every day, but it's very like the barista and you don't talk very much, they're not going to be an influence. But if you're, with someone,
Yeah, if you're a serial killer, I would think you're not really talking to a lot of people.
Yeah, I love studying serial killers because they seem to break all the rules.
They break all the rules, and they're silent about it, right? They don't make noise. They're not loud. They're not going to be the ones that you have to call the cops on because they're blasting music in the middle of the night. They're not those people.
Mona, do you wonder if you know one? Like, do you ever wonder, like in your life, like, I wonder if that person I knew in college could have been like a serial, like, I don't know. I sometimes go there. I don't know if that's weird.
No, I've never wondered that. I have personally known someone, because I partially grew up in Pakistan. I actually knew someone who murdered another person, and they were hanged. They hung them. They got hanged by the government. But yeah, I mean, I know that person. I always knew they were creepy. They always had. I actually used to make fun. I used to imitate them to my family and be like, this person is really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, I knew that there was something wrong about this person because my spidey senses were tingling when they would come around, and I would say, there's something wrong with this person. What? This person is not to be trusted.
What were you picking up, do you think, from them? Like, what were you picking up on?
I think, maybe it's like a women intuition thing that I felt creeped out by them, that there was something, they had deviance in their behavior, although they would come across very religious and very pious. But underneath, there was so much deviance that I could just smell it and see it and feel it. And I would be like, get the fuck away from me, And then later, as a teenager, I found out that this is kind of gross, they try to molest my brother. When my brother was only 14, and my brother was like, get the fuck off of me. Like, and this person then eventually ended up, they were like a family friend. They eventually ended up kidnapping a 9-year-old boy. They sodomized this little boy. raped and murdered them and then buried their body on the outskirts of the city that I lived in. So I always knew they were deviant. It was just a level of what level of deviance are they going to hit and at what time.
Right.
You know?
I don't trust that I would be able to pick up on that if I met somebody like that.
Really?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't really know.
I was talking to my therapist about this. I've been in therapy for 13 years, very proud therapy going person. And I was talking to my therapist about it. My therapist said it is something that happens to people who grow up with a lot of trauma. Someone like myself, I've grown up with a lot of trauma in my family. And what it does is it almost kicks off your sixth sense. Now, some people might think it's like mumbo jumbo, but since I was a little kid, I knew when someone was not right. I did not want to be around them. And maybe that happens. There is an actual study that they found out that children who get sexually molested by their own parents or someone close to them end up having genius level IQs. I know someone like that. She actually belongs to the Mensa Society.
Right.
And this person was molested by their parents, both their parents. But they're a genius, but have immense amounts of emotional trauma. So I think it happens to people that some part of your brain gets activated where you're picking up on things that other people are not.
Right. See, I'm fascinated by this because in order to make really good decisions, you have to have good information.
That's correct.
And being able to pick up on signs and context cues and signals from other people around you, like that's a real important skill. That's information. It's data that you can use when you make your own decisions. And if you don't have access to that, like you're kind of at a disadvantage.
Right. It's like unspoken information.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unspoken information. So I feel like so many women, I'm gonna like women in society, and this is a global thing. Women are always taught in every culture to be nice, to be sweet, smile, be nice. And when I was watching the Ted Bundy documentary, you could tell when all the victims, they were just trying to be nice. They didn't want to be rude. And the one woman that was just like, fuck this guy. He's fucking creepy as fuck because he was trying to drag her into the car. And she was like, fuck you. She got in the car and she was like, fucking try to drag me now, motherfucker.
Right.
And she's safe. She is alive to this day.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much cultural influence globally that women are expected to behave a certain way or to be like, put a smile on your face and be nice. And I want women and young girls to be like, don't fucking smile. Don't be nice. If you feel creeped out by something, you trust that. You trust that instinct. You don't 100%. Need to be nice. You don't need to be, nice to be a creepy guy who's going to drag you, then fucking murder you, sever your head, and then have sex with your corpse. Fuck that.
Right. I mean, that's a perfect example of how our social context shapes the choices we make to like the death. Like it could be life or death. But correct. We still, and a lot of girls, a lot of women, I see it every day still do it.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten a lot better though. I think women are standing up for themselves a shit ton more, but we got a long way to go, I think.
Yeah. I mean, when you sit down with clients, like for you, do you kind of also have this kind of sixth sense thing that for you that you also try to activate to kind of get more information from the person that maybe they're not very good at articulating? Is that a thing that you guys do?
I do. I don't like to use my gut. That's the only thing. Like, I don't like to use my gut instinct because I have learned and maybe overlearned. Maybe I need to rethink this, but I have learned that there's a lot of bias in that because you can often be right, but you can often be terribly, terribly wrong. And I know this because people have used their gut instinct in evaluating me and they've been terribly, terribly wrong.
Interesting.
And so I look for like,
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You mean they've been incredibly wrong because they came back and were like, hey, I judged you a certain way, but you're so not that. Did they verbalize this to you or this is an analysis of your own?
Oh no, this is like I had a boss. I thought we were on friendly terms. She basically, this was years ago in my 20s, she basically picked up from her gut feeling, her instinct, that I had sexual attraction to her. So she came on to me. And when I said no, she was so shocked and embarrassed. And I mean, I was sexually harassed, basically.
Right.
She just made my life miserable at work and I just quit. But I mean, it was just so kind of interesting that she was so, I mean, just expressively attuned and sensitive, and you know, she could pick up on things. And I know you want me. I know there's something here. And I was like, no, there's nothing here. You're my boss. Like, so that's just one example. I mean, I've had a friend who called herself an empath, and she just couldn't ever pick up on like what I was thinking or feeling. Like, yeah, you know, I need to.
She's a no path.
She's a no path. She's a fake path. She's a pseudo path.
I think your boss might have been. That's not a gut. I think she's going below, under the gut.
Under the gut, yeah.
That's under the gut instincts is what she's going after.
I just don't. Those are just examples. That's not really scientific evidence. I just feel like I do look for things that are more on an intellectual basis, like people who ask a lot of questions, people who shut up and listen. If I meet a person and they're just talking, won't let me talk, I mean, that to me is a signal of something really, really kind of not right. Anyone who calls themselves an empath or calls themselves an expert, I kind of get suspicious about, because I don't know how they know that. Like, I don't know. I guess I kind of wonder. I don't know. They're just certain things I look for.
I guess what I'm trying to also understand is that, so you mentioned the intellectual part, right? So you're using the intellect to be like asking questions, like trying to understand, trying to decipher by asking. When you ask good questions, you get good answers. So you're asking good questions. Well, how in the decision-making process, and someone like yourself, how do you quantify that? Like you said that you don't go by gut instinct, but gut instinct is there for a reason. Like, we are primal and animals at the end of the day, right? We're social animals, but we are animals, and the instinct is there for a purpose, for our survival. So how do you dismiss that and just go with the intellect?
So here's where I feel like I am probably not in the mainstream with this point of view, but I totally agree that our instincts or our gut feeling or intuition, first, instincts to me are very different than gut and intuition, but I do think that there is a purpose to that. Like, there is a survival, like that lizard brain, fight or flight. There is a purpose for that. And the human race wouldn't have gone this far if it weren't for that. But I also think that we've gotten to a point where, we don't live in tribal societies anymore. We don't, a lot of us do live in very dangerous situations.
Sure.
But a lot of us don't. And we're still reacting to the world as if we do. And sometimes we are thinking too quickly. Sometimes we make snap judgments way too quickly, because that part of our brain, which is hyper efficient and wired for efficiency and was designed to like make these snap judgments to protect ourselves, that sometimes they force us to jump to conclusions where we see a Black man walking down the road and we react. And that's kind of a negative side to that kind of consequence. And and even the least racist person has the tendency to react because that bias is in our culture. It's in our society. It's like, it's everywhere. So I feel like there's got to be a point where we have to understand, and I'm working on this. I think about this all the time. Like, what is that point where we understand the difference between gut or instinct or intuition being a true survival skill, and leading us to make snap judgments about, women or minorities or immigrants or animals, or, the guy we went on a date with that could be perfectly nice, but just doesn't drive the right car. Like, how do we make that distinction? And it's not second nature. I think it takes a little bit of mental work.
How do you figure out if you meet a nice guy who doesn't drive who shows up in a jalopy? How do you then decide, oh, this person would be really great for my uterus? How do you decide that?
Okay, first of all, I got a picture, even just imagining anybody being good for my uterus. Okay. So wrap my head around that. Here, I think we make snap judgments. We use our instincts. We use our gut when we don't have time, when we don't have information. And a lot of times, like if you're driving down the road and somebody's cutting you off, you need to act on instinct so that you don't hit them, right? Like, so that's, you don't have time. You can't sit there and go, oh, what are the pros and cons of swerving out of the way? Like, you have to just do it. But sometimes we make snap judgments because we don't have information. And here's the thing, we could get that information. We have access to information. And a lot of times we don't. Like we'll never know a lot of things about the person we've been married to for 50 years. We will never know certain things, but we can know more. And I think that's a lot of what is the problem with what's going on in a lot of relationships in the world and society, is that we think we have all the information to make a judgment, but we don't ask ourselves, do we? Like, okay, so he drives a jalopy, but that's one bit of information. Like, what do I really need to know if this guy's good for my uterus or my other parts, right? Like, what do I really need to know? Like, does driving a jalopy make him less trustworthy? Does it make him less loyal? Does it make him less honest? Does it make him less caring?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so. Does it make, I mean, it depends on the person. So we don't take the time to ask, and we don't play devil's advocate to ourselves. Like, we don't go out to prove ourselves wrong just to make sure we are right. And that, I think, is a problem.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think there's also this kind of cultural condition, right? Where whichever culture you exist in, whichever country you reside in, there's kind of like this kind of collective conscience of something that people kind of subconsciously agree on. Like, for instance, I would say this is not even a cult. I don't even think it's one culture. I think it's a global thing. Women, genetically, or at least that has been my understanding of all the videos that I have watched, is that women always tend to seek security because the cave woman had to bear the children and keep the cave safe and make food, and the hunter and the gatherer, right? The man is a hunter. He's out there, he's chasing, he's killing the dinosaurs, he's bringing the meat home so we can cook and the family can feed, and family can eat. That will never change, right? That's the reptilian brain, right? That's the lizard brain that's always there. That's that animal, like, very primal thing in every single human being. And it's like it is encoded in our DNA. So how does one say, okay, well, I'm gonna dismiss all that as a woman? That's fine, he derives a jalopy, but he makes a mean, cheese sandwich. And he's really sweet to me. Not very ambitious, but very nice, which doesn't really meet kind of my thing, because I'm very ambitious and I'm very go-getter, but he's a really nice guy. He makes me feel safe and I feel nice, like, with him, but I don't also have other things. So how does one kind of dismiss the primal and try to look for other things,
Well, I mean, I think it starts by asking yourself, like, what do you really want? Some women want a man who can financially support them. And a sign of that is that they drive a nice car. Now, I know someone who is dating a man who is living in his van. Okay. And the reason he's living in his van.
Down by the river?
No, I mean, I don't know, wherever he parks it, right? So here's the reason why this guy is living in a van. Because, I mean, I live in the Seattle area. There are startup entrepreneurs all over the place, millionaires everywhere.
Sure.
This guy is one of those guys. Made a ton of money, sold his, IP to some, I don't know, Microsoft, and I don't know who he sold it to, made a ton of money, and just wanted to experiment with what it was like to live the other way.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a real outlier. That doesn't happen every day.
That's a super outlier.
It's a super outlier, but it's an example of how, like, there's always this possibility, like, you can't just assume too much. But anyway, the point being, I'm getting a little bit off track, but the point is, if you are a person who needs that financial security from a dude and he can't give it to you, then he's just not right for you. And there's that. He might be nice and sweet and make the best cheeseburgers in the world, but he just might not be right for you. But if you are, if you don't care about that, like, honestly, I would love a guy who could be my house husband. That's what I want. I will financially support him. You just do the dishes and the laundry. And if there's any, you just anything that needs to be taken care of. I don't need, it's
Yeah.
just what you want, but you have to get the information first.
Right. You don't need like you don't want like that hunter gatherer. You're just like, I'm gonna hunt and you can gather at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes. And I mean, I suppose there's like a social cost to that. Like I'm kind of a social weirdo, maybe. I don't know. But
Well, I mean, I mean, in the sense that I feel like a lot more women are doing that because they have high powered careers. I mean, look, I knew a woman in New York City. I grew up in New York City. I knew a woman. This is like we're talking early 2000s. She had a really high power finance job, and the husband was like, "I'll stay home and I'll help raise the kids.
right.
I'll trade whatever money at home with a few clients, and you go out there and make the big bucks." And they were perfectly happy.
It's division of labor.
Right.
As long as you're taking care of each other and there's love there and there's respect there and there's faith, there's a meeting in minds of what you expect. Like, how could it be a bad decision, right? You've got all the information you need. You know exactly what your end game is. You know the pros and cons. You know what the deal breakers are, and they aren't there.
When you go and meet someone for the first time, whether it is in a business or even in a, in a dating setting, how many questions can you ask before it gets super creepy on a first date?
Oh, no.
Because you're trying to get information, right? You're trying to analyze. You're trying to get as much information as you can. So how do you like not come across as creepy and being like, holy shit, like how many questions are you gonna friggin' ask me?
See, this is where we're bordering on like where my expertise leaves off and where the fact that I suck at relationships picks up.
Welcome to the club, sister.
I am not an expert on that. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean,
okay.
What would you say?
I have been accused in the business setting, it kind of becomes like a kind of like a tennis match. So I like toss the ball at you and then they toss the ball back at me. So it becomes a really nice flow to kind of understand. I've had guys who don't take the time. There's a lot of them who never ask me anything about me. And they're like, I'm like an open book. Ask me questions. You're not a book. Let's get this real. You're a human being. You don't have any letters written on your face. So you are a human being. I cannot read you. So please I'll ask you questions and then you can ask me questions. And when I ask them questions, they're like, do you work for the CIA? Do you work with the FBI? And I was like, no, if I did, I would have ran a background check on you already. And I probably wouldn't have went out on a date with you. So, no. So for me, it's a little weird when you're trying to get information out from someone and you're trying to ask them questions and then they're being so defensive about it. And you're like, well, then how am I supposed to get to know you? Because you're not taking the time to ask me any questions either.
I wonder if they're not an open book, but they're maybe just an open pamphlet. And they don't have much information.
I don't even think they're a pamphlet.
I
think they're a graffiti is what they are. They're a goddamn graffiti. Because you look at it and you're like, this graffiti sucks.
I mean, how many people do you know? How many people do you know that are really thoughtful, like really deep and thoughtful?
That's a good question. That's a very, very good question. I feel like maybe I feel pretty fortunate. I have at least 3 people like that in my life that are very thoughtful. They really take the time to say things and talk to me in a way that's really important. So yeah, very thoughtful. But I actually have a question here from James. He said, can Dr. Kabiri's theories ever be applied to AI research?
Yeah. So I work with clients who work in AI. I don't directly apply what I do to AI, but yes, there are decision scientists, decision analysts that use, models of decision making to inform the way that they, generate their machine learning or AI programs, software tools, whatever they have. And that's just another area. It's out of my wheelhouse, but I definitely know that is a very huge part of what decision science is about for a lot of people.
Right. I mean, when you call it like everything they say there's a science to everything, right? I mean, look, even as a stand-up comic, there's also a science to comedy in a way, right?
Mhm.
There are certain rules, there are certain things that are just in place, that just are, and right, they exist and they work for whatever reason, they work, that's how it is. But I guess what I'm also trying to understand with what you do at Kabiri Consulting is that, you have different kind of services that you offer it to event planners, to people who are speakers, to corporate businesses, and I guess also to individuals who want to,
Anyone.
anyone who wants
Yeah.
market research and stuff like that. I mean, I know that you've worked with Amazon. Is one of your clients?
Yes. Off and on. Yes.
Yeah, off and on with Amazon. I mean, what is one of the primary things that when you have, especially corporate businesses, when they approach you? I mean, at the end of the day, Nika, aren't they just trying to get to the feeling, how the thing makes you feel?
Like how a product or service makes people feel to make them want to buy it.
Because feeling is what makes you buy things.
Yes. I mean, this is what's really fascinating to me because I think a lot of businesses, and this is not necessarily Amazon. Folks at Amazon are pretty smart that I've worked with. When we're trying to make judgments on how other people decide, we're sitting in a very cold state. We're really calm, we're relaxed, and we're rational. And so we're trying to make these like judgments in a rational state. And we assume that people who are making those decisions are rational too. And it's really interesting how many times I've been in a room with business executives who are trying to decide how consumers are deciding things. And because they're sitting there rationally making having this conversation, they're automatically assuming the consumer is also rational. So yeah, it should really be about the whole package, the emotions, the rationality, the heuristics or the mental shortcuts, biases, social environment, bandwagon, norms, culture, all of that plays a part to varying extent. But too often, and if you are a business owner, you should be wary of this. Too often we assume that consumers are being rational when they're not. They're just not. So yeah, they should be coming to me and saying like, well, what's the emotional stuff that's going on here? Like, what are the biases that's going on here? But too often I get clients coming to me and wanting to know, like, what are the pros and cons? What incentives can we offer? How much value can we offer? Should we lower the price point? Things like that when they're not really as big of a deal.
No, would you call yourself a human algorithm?
That's pretty interesting. I hope not. That sounds so robotic.
I know it does, and I'm sorry to put it that way, but I think what I'm trying to, I mean, perhaps because algorithms are really quantifying where do you go, what do you click, what interests you, what they're following your pattern, emotional, intellectual. I mean, it really encompasses all of those things. So I guess I wonder, would you consider yourself a human algorithm?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not, and I don't mean to say that I'm offended by it. Like, I'm not at all.
I hope you're not, because I don't mean it that way. Yeah.
I don't get easily offended, probably because I am a human algorithm. Because I'm like, okay, where'd she come with that from? Where's she coming from with that? And trying to use that as information. And I have to say, yeah, you know what? I'm a lot more algorithmic in my thinking as I get older and do more studying and learning and thinking about like decision making. Maybe it's an occupational hazard. Maybe it's like, if I was an athlete, I'd probably be, watching my protein intake a little bit more every day, just kind of, I mean, maybe it's just something I do as an occupational.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I come across that way? Do I come across kind of clinical?
You don't come across clinical. You don't come across clinical. You definitely, I'll tell you honestly what you remind me of. I was having a conversation with another South Asian male comic who I had on as a guest. And I was talking to him about how Nika, I don't want to assume, but you're of Indian heritage.
No, Iran. I was born in Iran.
Oh, Iranian.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Iranian. Similar
Yeah,
culture.
yeah.
Similar cultures. I've noticed this. This is an observation of mine that, and this is not just South Asian, also with even Iranian comics, because I know pretty much every single one of them because I work with them because I'm also part Persian. But I one thing I've observed is that the culture requires, almost, it's like a mandated thing, that we have to be intellectual. We have to be really smart, because smart means getting an education, making money, security, not going back to what the older generation was suffering. So the younger generation is going to be less suffering. So you got to be smarter. You got to work harder. Fuck emotions. We can put emotions on the side. Let's just get to it. How do we make money? How do we secure things, right? So a lot of it is intellectual. So what I was observing is that a lot of the South Asians and even Middle Eastern comedians don't like to show vulnerability on stage.
Oh.
They don't like to be vulnerable. Now, I am the opposite of that. I go and I just rip my band-aid, and I'm just like, I grew up in really fucked up household. I grew up with a ton of abuse. I got the shit kicked out of me till I was 15. I talk about it very openly, and I often see them like clutch their pearls, because it's like, oh my God, this is like overwhelming. Like, why is she telling all this? And it's just
Yeah.
like, you don't understand. Art is vulnerability. I mean,
Yeah.
being an artist requires a level of vulnerability. So to me, that you kind of remind me of these brilliant, amazing comedians that I work with, because so much of it is intellectual. Their jokes are brilliant, and they're intellectual jokes, but they're brilliant.
But they're not vulnerable.
They're not vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not to say that you're not, I mean, look, I'm talking to you for the first time. I don't expect you to just be like, here's my issue. Like,
I didn't know what this was supposed to be about. I could have come with,
no, not at all.
I could have come with guns blazing if I knew that's where we're going.
Yeah, no, but I guess, but just like you said, it's also occupational hazard, right? That's, you do this day in and day out. So how can you just dismiss it like while you're talking to me? It's
what?
Your everyday existence.
I'm so glad you brought this up. So I have worked in business consulting now, or consumer research, for over 10 years. And before that, I was in academia, both very cold, very robotic, very mathematical, clinical, like research, data research, right? And one thing that has really bugged me about all of it is that the people who do it don't apply it to their lives. Like the things they learn, I really didn't see them apply it to, like, okay, I suffer from depression. Like, and I'll just be vulnerable now. Like, I spent a good part of my 20s waking up every morning cursing that I was alive, and going to bed every night wishing I was dead. I put a loaded gun to my head more than once, just hoping, and the thing that saved me was learning about the way the world works. It wasn't therapy. I mean, I got darker and went deeper and got worse with therapy, because it was all about getting into the feelings and I'm a crier. I'm a feeler. I curl up on my ball, like I go through all of that.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't able to remove myself from that and just think about the world and how it works, and then how my brain works, and learn things like, okay, people who suffer from depression see, like, they engage in delayed discounting. So anything that happens in the future means a lot less. Everything that happens in the short term is everything. And so you're going to make impulsive decisions because you're going to get those quick fixes. And, you learn things like that, and you're like, holy shit, like, no wonder why I'm stuck in this fucking rut, because I keep looking for those short-term fixes. So, I mean, it is for me, like my blog, Your Next Decision. It is like my mission to kind of bring all of this knowledge from this intellectual space and help people who are really suffering, for who maybe therapy isn't working, or maybe who can't get a job, or maybe lost their job and don't know what to do. Like, how do you make the right choices there? In my heart, Amazon's going to be fine without me. They're going to be fine. They don't
Right.
need me. But where I really want to do the work is in those moments of vulnerability, in those places of vulnerability. And maybe in doing that, Mona, I will become more vulnerable. Who knows?
First of all, I just want to tell you thank you so much for being vulnerable, and thank you so much for sharing that. Depression is a real thing, and I think I think a mental health awareness is a big deal now that more and more people are talking about it in the West. But I feel like in South Asia and Middle East, and even communities that are based in the West, don't really want to acknowledge. They don't really want to talk about, like, oh my God, I told my brother one day, I was just like, man, I am like in such a dark place today. Like, I'm having a really hard time getting out of bed. And my brother said, it's probably nothing. You probably just need to get out of bed and take a walk. So there's that, right? And you're just like, we're not having this conversation because you don't understand what the fuck I'm like, I might as well be speaking fucking Martian to you right now.
Right.
Like, you don't understand what the fuck I'm saying to you, right? Because he himself needs therapy and just dismisses everything, right? So my brother's a very intellectual guy. So his defense mechanism is all intellectual.
Yeah.
Brilliant guy. My brother's graduated high school at 15, makes a fucking shit ton of money, travel the world. Brilliant guy. You can talk to him about anything. You can talk to him about quantum physics. He knows. He's brilliant. And he has nothing to do with quantum physics. The brilliant guy, right? Has a really hard time tapping into his emotions, has a really, really hard time, So I feel like so much of it is also these kind of familial and cultural expectations and cultural places that we grow up in that condition our mind in a certain way. No? Would you agree with that?
No, I am 100% agreeing. In fact, if my mother knew that I had even mentioned that I was suicidal, if she hears this interview, and which she will, she's going to freak out because I should not be talking about this in public. Like, that is definitely a cultural thing.
Why not? Why shouldn't you be talking about it?
Because people could use it against me, because it's ammunition, because people could judge me. There's a stink about, oh, you're mentally ill. I mean, we have come a long way, but there's still, and I know I'm not mentally ill. Like, I know I'm not mentally ill.
No.
I know that whatever put me in that dark place was the environment I was in, the situation I was in, a combination of that, and some, just a series of bad decisions that just led to other bad decisions that I could easily just get out of, which I did. But I don't know.
I once read this brilliant quote. It said, before you diagnose yourself with depression, make sure you're not surrounded by assholes. I think about that every single time. Every time I'm depressed, I'm like, am I surrounded by assholes? Is somebody talking shit to me? I need to fucking get rid of them. Get out of my life. So I think that's a pretty big deal too, right? I think the Persian culture, I feel, is this very similar to the South Asian culture. We have this saying in Hindi, in Urdu, we say "log kya kahenge," meaning what would people say?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What would people say?
What would they think? What would they think?
Right.
It's the same. It's what would they think?
Yeah, because vulnerability means weakness. And it's interesting because I was talking to my brother once. I have 4 older brothers. My third brother is the one that I'm closest to. And he goes, isn't vulnerability equal to weakness? I was like, not even close. It's the opposite, actually. Weakness is just weakness. Vulnerability is strength. The fact that you can open your heart and bare your soul and stand there and tell someone this beautiful, vulnerable side of you, and that in return, that person turns around and they open their heart and they make themselves vulnerable. Where is the weakness in that? That is nothing but strength. That is nothing but human, and it's beautiful in all its glory. I mean, it's incredible. And I remember looking at my brother, and I was blowing his fucking mind. It's like as if I told him that the moon is not made out of cheese. And he was like, what? The moon is not made out of cheese? What is it made out of then? And I was just like, why am I the younger sister? Am I telling you more about life? Like, what is it? But I understand his hindrances, right? He hasn't been to therapy. He hasn't really kind of taken the time to do that personal growth work. So I guess the other question that I wanted to come to and ask you, Nika, is that, are you thinking about, or do you also cater your business more to personal growth work?
I'm starting to more. I am starting to more. And actually, I've started picking up clients that want that from me, that they want coaching, they want counseling, but not from a coach, not from a career coach, not from a therapist. They want to make, and they're like, I want to make good decisions.
Mhm.
I have this really big decision to make. I want to make it a good one. And
Mhm.
therapy isn't going to help me, and a career coach isn't going to help me. I just need to know how to make a good decision, because that's where life happens. That's how life
Every
turns
day.
out better, is if you make the right choices. You make the wrong ones now, you got poorer options down the road. So you got to really get it right.
Right.
And yeah, it's amazing that more and more, the more that I, do podcasts like this and people hear about what I'm about, that's what they really want to
Yes.
hear. That's
I
what
mean, listen, the moment I read Decision Science, I was like, I need this lady. I need her right now. She's coming to the podcast. We are talking
Oh
about
gosh.
because I think it's so important, right? Every day we make these small decisions that lead to bigger decisions and bigger things, right? I know about personally about myself, where I talk to my therapist. I do EMDR therapy, which I absolutely love. I don't know if you know what that
I've
is.
tried it, and it is really effective. It can be really effective.
Really effective, right?
Interesting.
Tapping, it's brilliant. I mean, I've just love EMDR. Of all the years of therapy, EMDR hands down is my favorite because I see instant results,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that I notice about EMDR therapy, and just about my with this decision making, is that the personal growth part is that sometimes when I make decisions, I cannot differentiate if it's a trauma response or is it an actual gut instinct that's talking to me. So I
Yeah.
can't differentiate between the two sometimes. So
That's
I asked my
yeah.
therapist, so how would you distinct those two things if that is in maybe even part of your processes?
It is. And that's another really great reason why I don't like to follow my gut, because I know I have a lot of baggage, and I don't
Mhm.
know. I often don't know, am I reacting to my baggage, or am I reacting to this person or the situation?
But that's two
Um,
things though. But there's trauma and then there's the gut. The gut I
yeah.
feel always leads you in a good place, but the trauma response kind of leads you down a fucked up path.
Yeah. And not knowing which is operating, you hit it on the head. Like, not knowing which is operating can be a
Right.
mind fuck, because you
Yes.
won't even know until it could be years later and you don't even know.
Yes.
Um, that's one of those situations where I don't have an easy answer. It would be just, I would need more information. And sometimes I can't, I don't have answers. Therapy has answers, cognitive behavioral therapy has really great answers, because there's a lot of similarities between what they do and what decision scientists do.
Mhm.
Or not decision scientists, but like what behavioral science can tell us about decision making. But yeah, I mean, the best advice I could give to someone who isn't sure is to just stop, take a breath. Like, in every situation where you're not sure, we are, again, like, wired for efficiency. Our brains want to move fast. And if we can slow down, we can make it, you just calm down a second, take a breath, and have that slower part of our brain, rational part of our brain, do the thinking.
Mhm.
We can get closer to that. We have more knowledge than we think we do if we just slow down and look for it.
Mm. I'm gonna bring up Tony Robbins. I keep calling him Tim Robbins, and I'm sorry about that. So Tony Robbins has this thing that he says. He says that he says every answer to the question that you're looking for, you can give yourself that answer. You have it within you. You just haven't taken the time to kind of sit back and just kind of
Mm.
maybe through meditation, through taking a walk, working out, whatever. Like the answers you are looking for, you already have them. You just haven't asked yourself the right question to unlock it. Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay. Why would you agree with that? Why would you agree with that?
Because there's no way each of us knows everything we need to know to make the decisions we need to make. Like, sometimes but I will cut him some slack, as if I have any authority to cut Tony Robbins any slack, right? Like I'm at all qualified to,
But
but
you are Dr.
I,
Kabiri. I mean,
I,
God.
I I don't agree with a lot of what he and a lot of motivational speakers. I would have to say I'm the alternative to a lot of that.
Mm,
Because I don't believe we have all the answers inside. I don't believe that we can be fully fulfilled by constantly looking in and trusting ourselves and looking in our gut, because we are such a small part of the world. And there's all this other stuff around us that's really influencing us without us knowing.
mhm.
And we have histories, and we have friends, and we have and we have access to the internet and all this other information that we don't possess. So a lot of the answers we don't really have inside of us. We have to actually go out and seek them out. And if we think that we have it all in here and we just have to look, we are really making decisions off of partial information, poor or imperfect information. So I would say, yeah, we have the capability to learn more information than we think we do. We can't know everything. Like we cannot know everything, but it's not all inside of us. I would totally disagree with that.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, whether it's in business, whether it's in personal life, would you feel like your kind of desire to start your consulting firm came from your own kind of personal, life experiences where you were just like, there has to be some kind of service or some kind of knowledge that people can be given who are in the same boat as you, because God knows that I'm in a dilemma right now about a project. Right, I am in a huge dilemma. This is a very big project, and I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I was trying to get answers from him, and he gave me some answers, and he gave me the answers the best to his ability. And I love him; he comes from a place of love, and gave me, but they didn't make sense to me. My brain was just like, I've given you all the information I have about this person to make this decision, but the responses that you're giving me are not satisfactory. Like they don't hit my brain and they don't hit my heart. So I will not proceed with them, but I appreciate your responses, and and I love them for giving me those responses, right?
Yeah.
I'm also trying to take his information that he gave me, and I'm trying to process it in my brain. I'm saying to myself, okay, what are the really good pieces of information that he gave me that I didn't have before? So I can extract that good stuff and then go on and get some more information to make a better decision.
I love that. I wish more people did that and this is another thing that really can get people in trouble is when they ask for advice and not information. Like really all you can get from people is information, because nobody else has ever been in the situation you've been in. Nobody really knows. You don't even know what the best thing is for you to do. You won't know probably ever, because whatever happens out of that decision could have to do with COVID or something, you have no control over. But I think too often we look for validation. We look for advice. We want people to tell us what to do, or we want people to tell us that what we want to do already is okay. And really, if you want to make good choices, you have to minimize uncertainty as to the best that you can. Because if you can minimize uncertainty, you are less likely to make those snap judgments. You're less likely to use your gut and let it go astray. And just seeking information and being able to filter, that's a great skill, Mona, just to be able to filter bullshit that's coming at you or crap or whatever, even good stuff that's coming at you, and pick apart the information from the, here's what I think you should do.
Yeah.
Is really, really important.
Okay. I mean, is that something that is also part of your business, kind of consulting, kind of teaching people to be able to do that?
Part of what I do is identifying, okay, when people are making really quick decisions without the right information or enough information, or maybe they're using the wrong information, I'll stop them and we'll do some information gathering. And that's where research comes in, because sometimes you just have to do research. You have to research your consumers and figure out what they really want. You can't possibly know. Or research options. Like maybe there are options out there. Like I'm coaching someone right now who's trying to make a career change, and he's got I could do this, I could do that. And I'm like, well, maybe you could do this other thing you haven't even thought of yet. Do you have enough information?
I'm always fascinated. And perhaps this is my own blind spot, and this is perhaps my own ignorance. I get really turned off by men that if we sit down to have dinner, right, and they spend about 10 fucking minutes looking at the goddamn menu, or they're just very indecisive and everything, it drives me fucking nuts.
Wow.
Especially in a man, I see it as a form of weakness. I'm like, you are a weak man.
Why? What is that? So what is that? Why does that mean weakness to you?
You can't make decisions, smart and quick decisions. You can't, if we're going to go and, if I want to make a life with you and we have to go buy a house, we probably have to spend fucking 10 years because you took goddamn 10, 15 minutes just looking at the fucking menu. Figure it out. You don't know your taste buds? Like, check in with your taste buds. So to me, it's just like you don't have lack of awareness. Or when they say, what's really good here? Well, your taste buds is not the same as their taste buds. So why are you asking them that question? It's ridiculous to me when people are like, what's good here? Fucking everything. Depends on the taste.
Like, when I am afraid to ask what's good here because I think that the waiter is just going to tell me what they need to get rid of. Like, because I have information from insiders in the restaurant industry.
Really good,
I have that inside information that, like, don't ever ask the waiter what's good, because they're just going to try to get you what's like old and trying to get, where they're trying to push product out. But yeah, I don't know. I've noticed some people make really easy decisions in the very hard way, like what to eat for dinner. It'll take them forever to decide. And then when they're in a crisis situation, they can make a decision like it's just so people are very different. They're very, very different. But that annoys me because what you eat is really not such a big deal that you have to spend 15. Like, where's your priority there? Maybe nerves. Are they nervous? Maybe they're nervous. I don't know.
If I make a man nervous I want to know, why am I making him nervous? And that's a very good point you bring up. I was asking myself the other day, I was like, have I ever, in all my years of dating, been out with a man or go on a date with someone and be nervous? And the answer was no.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Never nervous.
And they probably pick up on that, and that probably makes them nervous.
What is that? Is that me going in not being vulnerable? Is that me going in being like with my guard, with like my shield? What is that?
I mean, you're just open. You seem to me to be a very open, like, here it is.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that more people are like that. I try to be that way because I like to make people feel safe, right? I like to make people to be like, hey, I want you to feel comfortable. I often meet strangers and they'll tell me the deepest, darkest shit about themselves. And then they'll stop and they'll be like, I don't know why I'm telling you that.
It happens to me all the time. Like at a bar, some stranger walking up telling me about I don't know them, and they're telling me how they just got out of prison, and I don't. Yeah.
Yes. And you're just like, why are you telling? And I'm just like, they're like, I don't know why I'm telling you that. And in the back of my head, I'm laughing. I'm like, I know exactly why you're telling me that. I know exactly why you're telling me that. But you don't know. But that's okay. I know.
Why?
Because I come across very vulnerable and open, just like you said. So people feel safe. So they're consciously, they don't know, but subconsciously, there's subconsciousness. This person is not going to harm you. They're trustworthy. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to take this information and use it as a weapon against you. You can open up. You can tell them. But they don't know that consciously. It's all happening in the subconscious, So I guess my next question to you is, Nika, and it's been an hour. I mean, this is amazing.
Oh my God, that went fast.
What a fabulous conversation. What a fabulous
This is fun.
This is so fun. You're so coming back. I'm going to haunt you like every 2 weeks. I just want you to know that. Because this is such a fun conversation. I guess the question I was trying to ask you, like, now that you are, you have your business. First of all, how long have you had your business for?
I do hear a reverb now. Do you hear that?
Oh no, I don't hear any. Is it coming on your side?
Yeah. If I don't even care anymore. I'm just having too much fun to care about that. So I started my consultancy. It's been like a year and a half now that I've had my own consultancy. And before that, I was working at various other companies, doing similar things. So
data analysis and market research.
Yes. Yeah. And consumer insights, which is, it's a little bit, it's taking whatever data you have and then helping the people who are your clients make decisions with that data. Like actually saying, because of this data, here are the choices you need to make as a business. And here are some things you need to try, things you need to test, brand positioning that you should use. So heavily on the recommendations. It's really more consulting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nika, I have a company. I have a brand I started 6 years ago called Minority Reports. It's a live show that I launched at the Comedy Store. Then we turned it into a podcast and digital series. Yeah. Now it's like moved on to greener pastures, as I say. And in the beginning, when I was doing the show, I was really struggling trying to get clients or people, people to come and watch comedy. And I was just like, I don't understand. Everybody's talking about diversity and representation. I'm giving you exactly that. I don't fucking understand. What is the problem here? And then I started really paying attention to what was happening as to what I was writing on my flyers, who I was marketing to, and how I was marketing it. And then bad show after bad show after bad show. In the beginning, I was just like struggling. We would have like packed rooms one night, and then other nights we would have 3 people show up and be like, what the fuck is going on? And then I kind of tapped into what I realized is that people like to go and see things that are familiar to them.
Mhm.
So when you write and market things, that it's just like, for instance, if I write, decision science and comedy show, that will immediately catch your attention because that's something that's like down your forte, and other decision scientists that do same kind of work, right? And that's exactly the audience that I'm trying to get to. So I realized that you can't make stuff murky. You have to make it almost in like stupidly simple terms. Like make it so stupid, make it so dumb that you're like, are you fucking kidding me? People are gonna laugh at this. And then I was like, no, this is what works. If you put it in, people don't want to do the thinking, right? They don't want to do the thinking. They don't want to do the intellectual processing. They want you to do the thinking for them. So great. Then I'll dumb it down to make it so simple you can't fucking miss it, right? And we started packing rooms out of 300, 350 people, 250 people, just packing rooms out, just with that one little adjustment.
Because they knew what they were going to get.
They knew exactly what they were going to get. We put it very, very in simple layman terms for them. Hey, right. This show is for people like you.
And that's why it works, because it attracts the right people. If you're murky, anybody could look at that and go, well, maybe it works for me. I don't know. Let's try it. And then you get a lot of the wrong people. So yeah, a lot of what I do with my clients is try to understand who their target consumer is, or who your target my audience might be. And what do they want? What do they need to hear in order to be interested in you? Like what is their language? And I teach a course at the University of Washington on exactly this, like teaching my graduate students, how does decision science inform the way that you speak to your audience when you write content, design a website, market to whatever it is you're selling? Like, how do you use that psychology to get them? And yeah, you have to be laser focused.
Right. Absolutely. I'm not going to take too much more of your time because this has been a lot of fun. I wanted to ask you, do you have a TED Talk lined up? I hope you do.
I don't. I'm hoping one day.
We need to get you a TED Talk. This is amazing information. The world needs to know this.
Thank you. I would love to do that.
This is just brilliant. I'm going to ask you one last question and then we'll start wrapping up. Okay. Do you feel or think, because you're, data analytical, do you think that if you had not lived the kind of life that you live with the kind of baggage as you described it, that you would even have stumbled upon, even come across, or even thought of starting a company like yours?
Never. I would never. The last thing I ever wanted to do in my life was be in business. It's the last thing I ever wanted to do. When I was younger, I wanted to be a writer, like a fiction writer, like an artist writer. Like I wanted to write screenplays. I wanted to write stories. I just wanted to write stories. I wanted to be a teacher. There was a little while there where I wanted to be a professional athlete. I just didn't know what. And later in life, I discovered kickboxing, and I was competing in that, which is great. Wow. I would have loved to be a professional at that. But business just seemed, it's just about the money. Now, I'm going to be honest, like, even though that's what I do for a living is I help companies, really, I just help them make more money. I help them sell shit to people who probably don't need to buy that shit. And that's just what I do.
Right.
But no, I would never have. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what choices got me here, but I just know that there's something in it for everyone as far as improving their lives.
Would you say your emotional experience led to an intellectual decision?
I would say that because I used to be so hyper emotional, so sensitive, so emotional, that I had to train myself to be more cerebral in
Mm-hmm.
order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn that balance. I had to learn that
Mm-hmm.
balance. And yeah.
Would you say that EQ is more important than IQ or vice versa?
This is such a biased answer. I do what I do because I really do believe that making the right choices is what matters. And I don't think that has anything, I don't think it has to do with IQ or EQ. I think it has to do with a little of both and maybe a little bit of other things, like
Huh.
just even training and like the laws of probability. If you understand probability, you understand likelihood, you can pretty much make better decisions overnight.
Huh.
Uh, and then you can have a better life. But I don't know.
Okay. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
No, that's
I
fair.
mean, it sounds self-serving, but it's
No. That's a very fair thing. I Where can people follow you? Where can people go and hire your services?
yeah. So I have yournextdecision.com is my personal blog. It's like, just basic advice. It's very brand new. I'm still adding content to it. So be patient with me. But if you want to subscribe, I can send you new things all the time. My consultancy is kabiriconsulting.com. So it's my last name consulting.com. And you can find me there. And I'm at Nika Kabiri on Twitter. And you can follow me on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Consulting.com. This has
Yeah.
been such a great conversation. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you so much. I
Oh my,
love talking with you.
oh my God. Same here. I just learned so much, and we would totally love to bring you back on as a guest again if you would let us.
I would love that. I would
Okay.
love it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Anytime.
Well, thank you so very much. James said, thanks, Mona and Dr. Kabiri. Great chat. I think I need to watch again to pick up everything that was covered.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's good or bad.
It's totally good. When it comes to James going back and what, it's totally
Okay.
good. It's really
Cool.
good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
we will see you soon. Thank you again.
Yes.
That was Dr. Kabiri. Oh my God. What an absolutely, I would put that as one of my top favorite conversations, you guys. One of my top favorite chats for sure. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you guys, I am so close to monetizing my channel right now. I am so happy, but I need your help. I need to go to youtube.com/Mona Shaikh comedian. You can follow me on TikTok and Facebook of the same handle, Mona Shaikh comedian. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy. You guys, I will be back tomorrow with a brand new guest. Have a good evening. Stay safe out there. And please wear your masks.